everybody, and welcome to Real Talk, where we talk about what you're thinking about. My name is Dina Hackley-Hunt.
And I am Laura Williams. Welcome. What are we talking about today, Dina?
Oh, gracious. First of all, we have a new rule. We will never take these on a Friday. Ever again. Okay? That's the first thing.
True.
But let's talk about something kind of light and frothy. Let's talk about white body stamina.
Sounds perfect for a Friday. I was thinking, I was like on the way to work this morning, I was like, I am feeling tremendous tiredness. I said, but I am not too tired to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because it's very, this is an important topic.
It is. I think everything we've talked about is pretty darn important.
Yeah.
This one, I think, if you haven't heard of white body stamina, it was inspired by the work of Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility. So people who just don't even recognize white fragility are going to probably struggle with white body stamina. Mm-hmm. But white body stamina, I first heard of it with the work of Resmaa Menakem, who is a social worker, and he works on somatic stuff and trauma and intergenerational trauma and racial trauma, and he is amazing. He's a healer above all else. And so he gives us permission to go in and feel what we feel, but he gives us a path out, which is cool. And I think that, this is just personal, but I think people who are afraid to examine how they feel, they don't know that there's a way to come out of it, and they don't know there's a way to heal from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes people afraid.
Yeah.
One of the things. Like, if I feel this, then what's on the other side of it?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard work. It really is.
It is hard. It is hard.
I think that we, in all, like, in all honesty, the decision to bring this to the table really stemmed from like a podcast that we both love to listen to Code Switch. Mm-hmm. If you're not familiar with the Code Switch podcast, and I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's amazing. But as I was listening to it, this was several weeks ago, I think. I was really surprised to hear about the support for the Black Lives Matter movement, mm-hmm. and how it's lower now than it was before the murder of Mr. George Floyd.
Yeah.
And I found that very surprising. Mm-hmm. And I think I found it surprising because I just, I always blame my whiteness on that, mm-hmm. like, why in the world would that, why would people not be as passionate about this as we are, you know? And so it was really surprising to me to learn that before the death of the murder of George Floyd, the support of the Black Lives Matter movement by white people was higher. And then it dropped after mm-hmm. that. I thought that was just fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I think as you and I were talking about it, I think it really does stem from white body stamina, because mm-hmm. everything was kind of, we were like, the mm-hmm. fight was on, like, we're doing this, and then, we were faced with just an incredibly horrible thing to watch.
Yes.
Everybody was, watched that just about, and then I think I kind of wonder, what happened after that? Like, what happened?
Right. Were there answers here? Because we talked a little bit about that article.
Yeah. So the article that they spoke of on Code Switch was from, there's one that, let's see here. Yeah, the one that came out in September of 2020. This is the Pew Research Center, and it talks about that support for the Black Lives Matter movement has decreased since June, but remains strong among Black Americans. Mm-hmm. What I've highlighted here is that, in June, a majority of white adults, 60%, said they supported the movement, at least somewhat. Now fewer than half expressed, and there really weren't necessarily answers. It was more of a very analytical look at it, but just really seeing how there was a pretty significant decrease mm-hmm. among white folks. There was also a decrease among Asian and Hispanic folks, as they're listed here. But it was very, very significant for white folks, which, I wish I could say is surprising, but it's not really.
Yeah. But I think we were hopeful, right? We were hopeful. This was going to be the new thing. We were going to get stronger and better.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know really what. There's still and even a year later, in May 2021, this was written as an article from the U.S. News, written by Joseph Williams, and it talks about how there's even there's been even a more even less white white allyship fades.
Yeah.
And I just think that's.
It's disappointing.
It's disappointing, and at the same time, it's pretty consistent with the history of civil rights movement and the history of the United States.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're faced with when something's in our face, and we're forced to deal with it, then we're in uproar.
Right.
But the thing about being white is that we have the privilege of turning away from it and not having to worry about it because we get to walk in the world differently than somebody who does not have white skin.
Right. And I think that I think that's a very harsh but fair way to look at it. But I also think, just for human beings in our bodies, we have to also think about just things in terms of even psychologically. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. We got saturated with the deaths of black bodies at the hands of white people, and we were saturated. And so you can only sustain that heightened level of vigilance and anger for so long. Your body is going to force you to bring it back down. It's going to force you to bring it back down. So I think that for white people, for the people that found themselves surprisingly really passionate and fired up about this, that adrenaline and that, oh my gosh, that went straight up. There is no plan. Or what do I do now? I'm just out here in these streets, and then let's tell the truth. How many of our white allies lost something in the fight? So not only can you just not sustain it, then you had to face the cruel reality that friends and family fell away. Yeah. And so there are people who lost something. Right. And then there's that grieving. Yes. And so there are some people who will never come back publicly because it's not worth it to them, and it doesn't make them bad people. But the reality is we're human. And if you've never pushed it to the edge and gone through the fire and said, come hell or high water, I'm doing this till the day I die, then you think there's going to be an end point. There is no end point to this. Right. So that hurt that I have white friends that call and text and say, I'm losing something and I don't know how to do this. I hear that. I hear that. Because that's where the stamina comes in. Yeah. Because white body stamina, the way that this particular article that I read from Karen Anderson, and she writes about Resmaa Menakem, and she said he talks about how part of the reason white people struggle with addressing racism is that many of us don't have stamina and humility around race and conversations about race to do anything about dismantling it. And we feel helpless or we tune out and shut down. These are, in and of themselves, trauma responses. Yeah. So if you didn't build up your stamina before you threw on your BLM shirt and got in those streets, and then all of a sudden your grandma wants to talk about all those black people and why are you out there? And you don't have language for her, grandma. Oh dear, right? Yes. So then you kind of just sit down. And that doesn't make you a bad person. No. But for I can only speak as one black woman, but I'm of a certain age and I've been talking about this my entire life. And so black people have language and self-protection around the issue because it is our reality. I like what you said about you get to walk the world differently. And we can't separate our blackness from anything else we are. I personally don't choose to. So I'm always ready for the conversation because I am the conversation. conversation.
Yeah.
That's my new t-shirt, y'all. I am the conversation.
I like it.
I am too. You've watched me get one. But
you know what? We'll make up a whole bunch of them. And we'll start a fundraiser. I mean, y'all buy one, right?
I am the conversation. I'm about to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, we talk about it all the time. And so the stamina has been built. What I feel like I have needed stamina for is to talk about it with people who've never talked about it before. Because I'm like, where were y'all?
Yeah.
Where were you? And then that stamina, like I was recently challenged on my beliefs about racism and things of that nature, and I kept waiting to have a visceral reaction to this man who was challenging me, and I thought, whoa, I'm not rising internally anymore. Because I would feel some kind of way when that happened in my youth. I don't know if it's because I'm just older and I'm in menopause and I'm hot and I want to trigger a hot flash, or if really I've built the stamina to even be able to even deal with people who just don't see it the way I see it. And unfortunately, I think the latter is true. I just have had these conversations and have heard these things so often now that it doesn't rise to the level of needing to defend myself or my people. Mm-hmm. But that stamina is something that, we've got to be builded in so many other ways, or we reject the notion that we do need to control emotion or stay in this conversation. I mean, think about personal relationships with loved ones, with significant others, with people you're trying to build even a romance with, and then something ugly pops up, and you got to do I like this guy enough to even have this conversation? Right. Yeah. Do I just need to give him his hat? Yeah. And your shoes. Here you go, bro. Here you go. Everything. All your stuff. Bye. Bye. It's not me, it's you. Been there, done that. I'm on my second marriage, so I get it, Yeah. I'm not going to do your paperwork back. But just for a minute, if we would just tell the truth. Yeah. When it's hard, how do you build a stamina to stick in there when it's hard? Yeah. I think that, to some extent, I think that's an individual question. Like, we all have to ask ourselves, like, what do I need? What do I need? In this work, what do I need to continue this work? How am I taking care of myself? How am I holding myself accountable? How am I challenging myself? How am I taking the time to reflect? And that in and of itself is something that many of us have not been taught. Like, we have to learn how to even do that. Sure. How to notice what's coming up in our systems, whether it's anger or frustration or even excitement and things that feel good, like noticing when those things are coming up and asking ourselves, what is this? Yeah. What is this coming up? And what, and then as, what, for me personally, what I've learned is similar to what you were just talking about. It's that when I've really done the work of sitting with these feelings and these emotions that come up and realizing what it is that's triggering them, when I name it, I name the trigger, I claim it, and then I tame it. Like, that's the language that we often use around, and something that I use in my yoga classes. And I am blanking on the person that I heard that from, and I'm so sorry. She is a yoga therapist out in California. I can't remember her name, saved my life. But it'll come back. It will, yeah. But I learned that from her, and I love it. We name it, and when we name it and we claim it, we recognize that, okay, this is what's happening for me. Then we're able to tame it, and then when those things come along again, we start to notice that maybe we're not as triggered. There you go. We're not going to respond to it the same way, because it's like, oh, I recognize this. Right. I know what this feels like. And that's how we build, that's often how we start to build stamina. Right. Well, and I think there has to be a space for it to be built. And a lot of people just do not feel like doing that with you. And so for our white allies, there are people who look like me who don't want to do this. They don't choose to. So, you cannot, that's one of the things you have to check your privilege in. Do I assume that this person of color, this black person, is going to, one, make me feel better, okay, or two, hold space for me to work through something. You don't get, we as humans don't get to force that on somebody else. And a lot of times when we've had the Karens and the Chads, it's that they were forcing an issue rather than feeling it and checking in and going, I'm just out. This is discomfort, not danger. It's not what is it about the other person that makes them feel or do anything. It's what is it about me that's making me react this way. We're all accountable for what we throw off. And you may not know you're throwing it off. I get that. But if the, I've talked about her before, if the woman in the park who was walking her dog off leash had stopped and thought about, why is this man, forget color for a second, why is this man talking to me? Oh, he is challenging my right to have a dog off leash in a park that doesn't allow dogs to be off leash.
Yeah.
So I feel defensive. Maybe I can correct that and move past him. She didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
She became defensive, not connected to him as a human being who's not comfortable having you're breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And you're having a dog off leash. Now, in his experience, he may have known I couldn't have my dog off leash as a black man in these streets, in these woods while I'm looking at birds. Or he may just say, you're breaking the rules and you're making me uncomfortable with your dog. I'm birding here. And so her inability to think, oh, this is not him, this is me, made her lose things.
Yeah.
A lot of things. And I think fortunately and unfortunately, we don't lose things usually quickly because for me, she didn't get a chance to learn from that experience. It was such a harsh lesson that she picked up the phone and she called the police and blah, 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 and then people canceled her. We talked about canceling. Did anybody work with her around her issue and what that came from? It wasn't his job.
Right.
But it would have been really cool if somebody had said, come, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So you can go back out in the world and try that again.
And I also wonder how much of that, since as you're speaking about that, it's something that just came up for me, is I wonder how much of this also stems from a lack of sense of community.
That's really good, because connection was what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's like,
that's really good.
We've been so conditioned, and I think we don't even realize that we're so us and them. We're so good at othering entire groups of people.
Oh yeah.
And also making them into this monolith. All black people over there, all white people over there, all Latino over there, and that kind of thing. And so we're all, and same with all men over there, all women over there.
That's good.
All non-binary folks over there, all trans people over there.
Right,
so everybody gets othered. And it's. I think identities are very important. I think identities are very important in terms of how, we identify and how we are hopefully treated inclusively as a result of that identity. But identity is often used to exclude and other as well. And so I just wonder about in that situation, where, as you were speaking about how, she never really sat and goes, you mentioned her right to have her dog. He's challenging my right to have my dog off leash because in this park we don't allow that. At some point, I also wonder, did she ever consider that in that situation like this, she was in community with that park, with the people in that park, and when we're in community, we act for the highest and best of the community, not for our own individual selves.
Yeah, and she couldn't get there.
Right, and the thing is that that's how this culture of the United States is. It's very individualistic.
Yes.
It's very much every person for themselves.
Yeah.
It's very I'm entitled, to what I need and want, but you're not because you're not like me. I'm better than you.
And let's go a step further. I love that. That's beautiful. Because I was thinking also when people become friends cross-racially, a lot of times the majority culture doesn't understand the boundaries that have been around their black friends or their Latina friends or their trans friends. They don't understand what boundaries that I don't like the term marginalized, but I get it. I don't identify as marginalized, but I know I'm part of a collective. I'm not just an individual. So when I say that, please understand it may not be my personal feeling, but I do understand the language, how important language is. But if you are becoming a friend of someone who's in a marginalized community, they've had to navigate this world a certain way.
Yeah.
And so I have a little sign on my monitor at my desk that reminds me, am I offering my advice from a place of privilege? Because it's real easy for me to say, girl, get your stuff and get up and leave him. Well, I have a job and I have a car and I have education and I got a little money in the bank, so I could leave him if I chose to. It won't help with the emotional piece of me, but it does help. I could physically leave the situation that if I didn't like it. I'm not going anywhere, Philip, if you're watching this.
Nah, she's not going anywhere. She does.
I do love Philip Hunt. But I have done that. I have said, well, just leave. What is wrong with you? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm sitting here in my college educated self talking to a person who barely got out of high school. And I've done that cross-racially, okay? Because anybody's in a bad situation. I got boxes. What you need? Are we taking this? Does this need to go? I mean, I'm that chick, right? But I thought, God, how many times have I done that without thinking about giving them some space to tell me what the fear is coming from? We do that. The majority culture does that with marginalized individuals all the time. Just be you. Just be you. Just do this. Why can't you walk your dog off leash? It don't work the same for me. I'm going to get picked up quickly. You know, this man was birding. He was watching birds. That's all he was doing. You know,
living his life, living his best life.
Best life in those streets, and can't even do it without. I mean, he might have been scared of dogs, for God's sake. I mean, there's so many, like you said, I love that, because if she had felt part of the community of the park, she may have thought, I want my dog as long as I have him on leash. I'm respecting my right to need him here, and your right to not be afraid of him.
Or believe that he was a part of her community.
Yeah. That did, What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
Like, how dare you tell me what I can do in this park?
Right. What are you doing? What are you doing? What do you mean you're burdened? You know? Yeah. That's good.
I really do believe deeply that we are so deeply conditioned, I think even on a genetic DNA level, because it's been going on. I mean, this has been going on for 400 years, for generations.
Yes, ma'am.
So it has evolved into our DNA. You can look it up. It's the study of epigenetics. It's there's science behind it. It's scientific, you know, and so it is. It's something that we carry, so I don't think we even realize how deeply conditioned we are to respond and react in the ways that we do. And that the only way to change that is to really sit with it, to be willing to dig into that really dark, icky, painful
And who does that
stuff
on purpose?
No, I mean, it's not fun.
No.
It's painful.
No.
It's painful.
I had a woman.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
So embarrassing.
And I had a person, disclose kind of in an open forum with a brown bag luncheon that I was doing, and she was saying, I just am always concerned that somebody's going to see something. That is a real fear for white people. You're going to see something that I haven't either seen or done the work on yet. Well, white people are not magic. We don't. We can't really. We may have our thoughts. Okay, we might. Girl, you sip my tea. Don't even. In all honesty, we all, as human beings, have stuff we hope nobody can really see. Because how many of us, I call it being the adult. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I'm a freaking adult. I got my adult mask on. I do adult things. I pay my taxes. I water my lawn. I do the things that you expect me to do as an adult. But after 5 o'clock on a Friday, how I do my life is really my business. And we like to act, I'm sorry, I was messing with my mic. We like to pretend that we're perfect 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I don't have the right to make you feel in some kind of way because I'm messy. Okay, I need to clean that up. But at the same time, I need to quit acting like I have it all going on 7 days a week. Those days where I'm not doing it well, if I do what you invited us to do, which is to sit, I might think this is not a day that I want to have a discussion about race. This is not a day I want to do that. Or this is a day I need to sit. Something came up and I need to sit. There's a lot of hurt and anger and grief that is locked in a black body, that's locked in a brown body. And to wake up and go to work that way every single day. You know, there's a term that I love called the weathering effect. And it's the piling on of the micro invalidations and microaggressions and micro assaults that people of color have to deal with every single day. And we cannot, it is not safe for us to react to every single solitary one, but it piles on. And so we are people that walk around a lot of physical ailments that have been born of that grief and that stress and that trauma. So it not only is a real thing, we talk about epigenetics, it actually, like you said, it impacts us on a cellular level. And then, well, those people, it must be because of the way they eat. Maybe, maybe, but it could be that, you know, the system is weakened by the weathering effect.
Right.
And so I guess what? I got to get up and go to work black again. You know? Yay!
Yeah, I gotta walk out my front door.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta walk out the front door.
I gotta send my black husband and my black son out. You know, so and I think that, you know, that othering of our trauma even is becoming an issue for me. It's not something I want to talk about yet, but I'm beginning to see a lot of people that really want to come around and wrap us in bubble wrap because of our trauma. Hey, 400 years, we got this, okay? You know. And so I think that
I just in my head I was like, white saviorism, here I come to save the day.
Oh my God, I had a white guy, God bless him, he followed me out of a workshop he was leaving. He wanted to know why I was leaving early. Again, why do you need to know my business? And I was having a good black day. And I said,
I love that. Having a good black day.
I was picking up my daughter, you know, and he goes, I just wanted to make sure you were okay because you were like the only person of color in the room. I said, I'm often the only person of color in a white setting, in a room. And he goes, well, I was leading it as a white man, and I just wanted to make sure you were okay. And then he pulls a Star of David out of his collar and is showing me that he said, because I'm passing. And I thought, where are we exactly? And do you need me to call your therapist? Because he shows me that he's Jewish. And I said, how nice for you that you can pass as a WASP. And I can't. I show up like this every single day. And I don't choose to separate. I said, but I'm good. I appreciate your content was great. And I'm going to go get my kids. Have a great day.
Right.
But yeah, that happens more often than me. No, that savior thing. Plus it's hard. I mean, part of me was like, aw, bless you.
Yeah.
And the other part of me was like, not necessary, dude.
Yeah. Not
necessary. So, and it can be, and again, please understand, I laughed internally and I'm giggling now, but that is where the missteps and the fumbling comes because we don't have a gracious, elegant way of interacting with each other yet. And it does take some humility and some stamina to do that. So stamina, you build stamina in anything. You build stamina when you work out. You build stamina in relationships. You build stamina in parenting. So why couldn't we build some stamina in white bodies? Why couldn't we do that?
And I think too, it's okay to laugh at ourselves. Like, I mean, it's even recently I was like, I can't believe I said that. Like, you know, it's like, I don't even know her. Why did I say that? You know, it was like this, like, it was this need for me to make sure that she knew she was safe here. You know, like, you're safe here. You're safe. You know, and then like I walk away and I'm like, I am such a white girl right now. Like, what the hell is going on in my head? You know, and it isn't. I laugh, and I'm just like, well, I mean, you know, hopefully, you know, like maybe she got a good kick out of it. Maybe she went to her friends and be like, this white girl, let me tell you what she did today. And so hopefully that was entertaining for her, you know, and you know.
But you know, it's born of a place of wanting everybody to be okay. Then I think we get it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody being mad about that. That's like I said, I hope you didn't I hope I didn't sound mad at the
No.
It was more like, okay, you want me to be okay?
Because it's not the first time I've heard that story. And so it is. It's like we giggle about it every time. We're like, oh, what was hard? Like, you know, and for me, it's like, oh, yeah, I've done stuff like that before. Yeah.
And we should see each other in we should see ourselves in others.
Yeah.
And we should see, and you know, you don't have to go there to or do that to learn something from it, from the experience. I think that's good too. And like you said, like we're saying, you may have to force the issue a little bit. You may have to force it even when you're still learning how to walk in those high heels. You know, you're gonna be good at this later, but right now we're gonna have to totter a little bit.
And that's okay.
And it's community. I love that word. It resonates. The community and the communication and the kinship and the friendship, and that's the relationship that will change this world toward what we've been waiting on. I love the phrase, "I'm who I was waiting for," and I think we in this generation, we could be who we've been waiting for a long time. But white people are going to have to tell themselves the truth. The defensiveness that people feel that will and see the defensiveness and the fragility and the tears that derails a conversation, a richer conversation. And so that's why I love what you said. It makes sense to me to sit in it, feel it, identify it if you can, and then find a safe space that doesn't necessarily have to be a black person or a brown person to say, "Oh, I don't know what this is, but I really need to talk about it because I want to get to the other side of it." Because that's what happened. People got saturated and they lost things, and they're on to the next thing. Right. And we are not, it's hard to say, but we're not the next cause. That's what it feels like. You know, we did black people already. We did it already. Yeah. So we're on to something else now. Yeah. I think if this country doesn't get the racial issue right, we will never be able to fully allow all people to be authentically themselves. Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So is that light and fluffy enough for y'all on a Friday? Yes, in these streets? Yep. In these streets. I feel lighter and fluffier already. Good. Frothy topic for Friday. Yeah. I like that. Frothy's a good word. Here's our frothy topic of the day. Yeah. So, I love it. Yeah. I love it. So, yeah, we invite you to look at the work. Let me spell his name if you've not heard of him. Resmaa Menakem, R-E-S-M-A-A, last name M-E-N-A-K-E-M. He's got a bestseller out right now called My Grandmother's Hands. And it's hard work, but it's important work that he does. I'm struggling to get through white fragility. It makes me hold my head, but it's work that I do need to do so that I can help, because I really think I'm supposed to help y'all. Yeah. We need it. No. I'm just saying, not everybody has the capacity. Yeah. And so I take that very seriously, and I consider it a privilege. So we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. Well, that's our show. So thanks for hanging out with us for another Real Talk. And let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your feedback. And I guess we'll see you real soon. See y'all real soon. Take care.